Hey everybody, and welcome to week number 11 of class. We're pulling into the second half of class. We're moving along pretty well here. This week we're going to cover chapter 13, which is the final chapter we're going to cover before a test. Your second and I'm going to say last unit test that you have in the class, which is coming up a week from this Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but a week from. And it'll cover the chapters since the last test will be 9 through 13. So, and the way to think about that is the test itself, or the way the class is broken up in the objectives, will finish the major objectives of the class once we finish chapter 13. We're going to learn some additional things, which I think we need to learn, but having said that, those are the things that most directly relate to the objectives of the class. So, and then as you can see, going into the next week, the week afterwards, we're going to start working on our group project, that group assignment, I should say. I keep saying project, it's not really a project, it's an assignment, which is coming up that, and we're going to start working on that next week. Okay, so that's kind of the primer for what's coming up. Now, so this week we're going to be talking about chapter 13. We're going to continue to look at how we evaluate longer-term capital types of decisions. And so let's take a look at chapter 13. Now, one of the things that you've noticed about all throughout the class is we talk about this concept of risk. We start to, put it to some kind of terms, but risk is a really important thing to determine in financial decision-making, because if you think about it, investors, the people who have invested in your company, are risk averse. They want the returns, but they don't want the company to take massive risks to get them. They're looking for a little more certainty in that. So risk is a very important consideration, and there's lots of different ways to try to assess and evaluate it. And all the ones that you see in the book are real things that they happen. I'm going to add one more in. Is that with the advent of AI and certain elements of the amount of data that we have, we can actually get a little more creative in terms of how we actually look at risk. That's a little bit outside the scope of this class, but keep that in mind. This isn't like an end-all be-all for assessing risk. So, by the end of the chapter, you want to be able to describe what risk is and how it's measured. You recognize that most investors are risk averse, and ultimately it means they dislike uncertainty. Any question about that? Look what's happened to the stock market the last few weeks in relationship to some of the things being done by the federal government, and you can see that the investors are feeling a little uneasy. Explain why investors require higher rates of return for risky projects. Now we're looking at individual projects. So if you were going to engage in a project or bring a project to bear on an organization, and it's risky either due to the length of the payback that it would have, or or conversely, it's just a risky endeavor, lacking certainty, you're going to have to show that you can make it's all worth it. The payoff is large enough to make it all worth taking on that kind of risk. There's things called simulation models and decision trees. We talked about that a little. I talked about that just now. Different things that are used to help assess the risk of an investment. And there's a lot more than what you see here, but this just gives you an idea of ways to do it. And then assess the impact of a given investment on the total risk of the firm, which is exactly from a financial management standpoint what you need to do. You're managing that entire view. Okay, so a lot of students find this an interesting subject, but it's just right at the core of and really important in terms of doing financial analysis. Okay, so if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Or any of the things that we've been talking about up to this point, because again, you'll be looking at the test, your second test, coming up next week. Just as a reminder, you do have a final test. It's called test number 4, but think about it as the next test that covers the material we're going to cover between now and the end of class. And that's all extra credit. And I'll give you more information about that as we get closer to it. But remember, that's always in your back pocket to help you bolster your grade if that's what you feel like you need to do. All right, so again, any questions, let me know, and best of luck this week.